a guy who has been in my life for longer than he even knows. I mean, I grew up in Philly, Ruben, huge Phillies fan. Big deal for me to be able to chat with you today. Thanks so much.
Great to be with you, man. Let's chat. Let's chat some ball.
Let's chat some ball. You know, I do want to mention. So you first came into my life. Of course, I'd heard about your dad, but then you hit back-to-back. You hit home runs in your first 2 games. Was that right?
I think that I did. I think I had 3 home runs in like the first 7 games. My very first start with the Phillies, I went 3 for 4 with 2 doubles and a homer, and people thought I was going to be like the next the next, I don't know, Mickey Mantle. It wasn't happening.
But here's what did happen. The next morning, I'm getting ready to go to school at St. Thomas Good Counsel, and Action News is on, and some woman had recorded a song called Amaro, Amaro, like in the vein of Tomorrow, Tomorrow. Amaro, Amaro, I love you. And dude, sometimes that goddamn jingle is still stuck in my head.
That's funny. That's funny. It's actually true. What is interesting about it, Andrea McCardle, I think, who played Annie at some point, was a Philadelphian. And so it was very weird, but I think it was Scott Palmer at the time was one of the one of the guys on ABC.
Yeah.
At the time, I guess WPBI.
Action News.
They actually contracted this young lady to do that song, and it went all downhill from there.
Oh man, it was great though, dude. You've always kind of been a household name around Philly, and of course around baseball, front offices, coaching, playing. I'm curious to get your take right now on the state of the game, but I want to ask you just like hot topic stuff, which I hate that term, but that's what it is, around this Guardians pitching situation and what has developed, what we learned late last week. First question for you, as a member of a front office, how hard would it be to detect an issue like this? And how does Major League Baseball and the Guardians navigate a road like this?
Well, obviously, it's a really difficult situation, and it's really unfortunate for Major League Baseball. They don't want any more black eyes. They've already sort of gone through some stuff. I mean, I think every industry has issues. And it's something that we actually dealt with quite a bit when I was in the front office and when I was a player. We would have people come in and have these discussions about the dangers of getting involved in, this sort of illegal stuff that can happen. And all you can do as an organization and as as an industry is to educate and try to make sure people understand the consequences. It just seems odd. No one knows what, each one of these ball players is going through personally on a personal level. You would think that because they're getting paid, a pretty handsome, and at least in one case, a pretty handsome salary, that, getting involved in something like this just doesn't make any sense. But you just don't know what the outside and inside pressures are that take you to this spot. I mean, obviously, the whole gambling thing just overall has gotten to the point where, people are just like when I was playing in Venezuela and other places in winter ball. You basically are gambling on every single pitch, every single thing that happens during the course of the game. And, some of the apps and some of the things that are driving, some significant revenue in the game today is reliant upon, a lot of people being involved in this stuff.
Yeah, we see Ruben Amaro talking with us, the host of the Philly Show. Also, you can see him on NBC Sports, chopping it up, talking Phils, and everybody knows about his career in the front office and on the diamond. When you're watching a game, and you're elite at breaking down baseball, how would you ever know if somebody did throw a ball on purpose?
It would be odd, and it would be tough to pick up at times, like when we see certain guys just the ball coming out of their hand and slipping out of their hand. I mean, I've got this, patented that, I'm sort of plagiarizing, but when somebody misses that badly, I'm like, hey, man, I think he just hit the bull.
Yeah, Bull Durham. Yeah.
But, it's a really difficult thing if it's happening repeatedly and you see it from someone who has really good control and command, then, it'll probably light things up for you. But in this day and age, it's really difficult to detect, frankly, because command and control has sort of gone by the wayside, and it's now about power and executing the hardest possible pitch and the most and imparting is the most spin you can on a pitch to make the player miss the baseball. That there are times when guys are just misfiring, and so it's really difficult for you to sort of break it down.
Yeah. One last question on this. When you were a ball player, you mentioned winter ball in Venezuela, but you get to the major leagues, it's much different. I mean, you hear some scuttlebutt and obviously the Pete Rose thing. I think the thing about Pete Rose that frustrated the people that I respected and talked to, people like in your role, was that, every time you guys walk into that clubhouse, there's a sign. I used to work in the NBA. Those signs are right there, dude. Do not gamble under any circumstance. They're everywhere you look, really, right? And so that is obviously an egregious move to make. But now it's like it's right there for these young guys who I know when I was young, I was a knucklehead, still kind of am. And you just have it's right at your fingertips, right? Do you think that this should be something that maybe these pro sports leagues punt on this idea? Like, could it be something like, hey, this is a bad idea, or is the money way too good?
It's a tremendous amount of accessibility just in general. I mean, this is a societal thing. I mean, you start talking about it's a deeper issue, I think, in a lot of ways that, there's so much exposure, the social media, the accessibility, the ability to gamble at your very fingertips in live time. And I think that makes life really difficult. I forget which country was actually considering shutting down all social media until the age of 15 for some of these young folks. And I think it's not a bad idea, to be frank with you. I just feel like, you talked about it being in the clubhouse. I had to read Rule 21 1,000 times. And, that was just my job. And Rule 21 basically talks exclusively about gambling. On a bunch of different levels. And it's something that I do believe that they continue to do every single year. The Major League Baseball Commissioner's Office typically will have people come in and have meetings about it and have seminars about it. All you can do, like I said, is sort of educate. And I just don't know. It's driving so much revenue for many of the teams and, the RSNs and all the folks that are carrying these baseball games, that it's a tough thing to get away from as far as the revenue is concerned. I can understand why teams and leagues and commissioners want to continue to drive that sort of revenue, but it becomes a very slippery slope, sadly. But all you can do is, you can, like Paul Owens used to say, you can lead them to water. You just can't stick their head in it. You can't make them do things. You can just, sort of educate them as much as you can, and you hope people make the right choices.
Yeah, it's concerning because back in the 80s, when you would hear about stuff like this or read about stuff, you'd always hear the rumors. And it kind of made a little bit of sense because guys were making a couple $100,000 and maybe they get in debt and, they're in over their head. But now the money is so huge. I think maybe, and this is from 30,000 feet, that the leagues themselves are probably like, there's no way these guys, that had to be part of it, like it's nickel and dime stuff. I do appreciate the gambling books that pick this stuff up. I think you're always going to get caught, which even makes it more like that fool's gold.
Yeah. Again, I think it's just a matter of people. There's some people who think that they have the God complex, right? I'm never going to get snagged. I'm never going to get caught. I've got this covered. But the reality of it is, in this day and age, especially, pretty much everything you do is going to be exposed. And that makes life difficult for the athlete. You see so many guys being so private about their stuff because of it. And they sort of have to be in this day and age. Again, the accessibility to the players, the accessibility to, be able to go on a gambling app and to do things so easily has made it, made it very, very easy for folks to make poor decisions.
Before I ask you about the Phillies, I want to wrap it up with this. Would you, if you were commissioner, would you shut it down?
I mean, I don't think I would. Obviously there would be investigations, much like what they did with the steroid era. I would assume that they're going to have to crack down on that and spend some time and some money on making sure that folks are educated better, that folks are being, scrutinized, what have you. I know that I can't gamble on baseball because I am part of Major League Baseball Network. I'm part of the NBC Universal RSN and such. So I know that that's something I just won't do. That's not my thing. But for a lot of people, it's a big deal and it's important to them. So I don't think I would shut it down, to answer your question, but it would have to be certainly monitored at a super high level now, because I mean, it's a certain black eye to the Major League Baseball, and it puts a lot of people in a tough spot.
All right, let's get to the Phils. I have a fear as just a fan that the window is closing right now. What are your thoughts on that? Nobody's closer or knows more than you.
Well, I think that the talent level on the club, I mean, the basic core players that are still there, I know that they have JT Realmuto, Ranger Suarez, Harrison Bader, and obviously Kyle Schwarber are now free agents. But beyond those players, and I do believe that they're going to make a huge effort to bring at least a couple of those guys back. You're still looking at, guys who are really productive still. I mean, Turner's a very good quality ball player. Obviously, they have Harper, and there's other young players that at the end of the season started to play quite well, the Marshas and the Stotts of the world. So, I mean, you have a really darn good core, and I really love their starting pitching. It sounds like Zach Wheeler's going to be back a lot earlier and sooner than they think. Not sure if that's going to happen, and that would be huge for them, because it automatically puts them in contention to have Wheeler, Sanchez, and Luzardo at the top of that rotation. I mean, that's fantastic. So you put yourself in a really good spot. You got Duran as the closer. They did pick up Alvarado's option as well, and they have Strahm back there. They may have to add on to somebody from the right side to make themselves have a little bit more depth. But yes, they are getting a little longer of tooth. Yes, they are still very talented players. Yes, John Middleton and Dave Dombrowski are going to do everything they can to bring that trophy home. And it's a very difficult situation because they are getting older. They have to start thinking about the future. And like I've said before, and I lived it myself, because I made the mistake of, shutting it down maybe 1 or 2 years too late, as opposed to sort of rebuilding 1 year too early. But that's a tough thing to do with this fan base, and the fact that there's a lot of parity in the game, man. There's no super teams, really. I know that the Los Angeles Dodgers have won back-to-back World Series, and they've been really good and great at times. But they're not so dominant that somebody can't overtake them. And I think a lot of teams see that, and the Phillies are one of those teams. So they're going to continue to try to get there to put themselves in a position to win. And it's going to be one of the most fascinating off seasons, just because of what you said. That's a very delicate balance of adding on to an already older core, which the Dodgers have as well, and still contending in the future. Tough one.
As a general manager, how do you weigh that? Like, you have this amazing piece that you can bring in, but you have this locker room in this clubhouse that is cohesive, right? And they know each other, they get along, and they have for a while. How do you manage that?
Yeah, well, it's not easy, because I mean, I lived it with Papelbon. We brought him on to become our closer right after the 11th season. We had the best season, I think, maybe in the history of our franchise as far as wins and losses. But we ended up having a lot of breakdowns physically with our guys. When I brought in Papelbon, really didn't know that was going to necessarily happen. We thought we were going to get, Ryan Howard back, and Chase was going to be better with his knees, et cetera, et cetera. But we had a lot of breakdowns. Roy Halladay went down. Even, we had, other guys go down as well. Cliff Lee went down, and, you start having that domino effect, and it ends up hurting you. We ended up, signing Papelbon to a four-year deal, and because I felt like that was the best, closer in the market, and it ended up sort of backfiring on us when the rest of the team sort of crumbled. So it's a tough call. You can't really replace a ton of guys, but if you have enough depth in your team, and you have some luck, and you stay healthy, then you got to give yourself a chance to win. I mean, I believe that in the big markets, when they have a chance to really have a legitimate chance to win, and I think you have to make really good assessments as to whether you're a real contender, you got to give yourself every chance. I think that's part and parcel of being a GM, is to win. And I didn't really believe in necessarily shutting it down or just competing. I wanted to contend every year, and that's a tough thing to do on the regular. And there's only a few teams that can do it on the regular.
Was that almost harder for you, being like a Philly guy, and the city as well as you do? You root for Philly just as much as the next guy. You're not just some dude coming through town that's like, a hired a gun, Like, was that pressure difficult for you? To make these major decisions, right? Because you really, really cared.
Yeah, very rarely do you take over a team that's won the World Series. Typically, you take over a team that's pretty crappy, and I was one of those guys that came on to try to continue the process, because we still had a great team. I think in 09, 10, and 11, we had really good seasons. We just didn't play well in the playoffs and couldn't get over the hump. But there's a pressure to succeed in Philadelphia, and I felt that pressure a little bit. But that's part and parcel of being, that's your job. I loved it. I loved every minute of it, and I loved trying to give the fans what they deserve, which is a winning team. And I felt like if we truly had a winning, we had a winning core. I sort of owed it to the fans who were, paying their money and supporting this team as much as possible to try to give them a winner.
When we talk about, just a few more for you, because I'll let you get back to your day. When we talk about the Phillies, what's the number one missing ingredient this offseason that they should be consumed with adding?
Yeah, I'd really like to see some bat. So I'll say this by saying there's really two things. I'd love to see a little bit more right-handed balance. I mean, Alec Boehm in the middle of the lineup has had some success driving in runs and creating runs. I'd like to have another right-handed bat. If, in fact, they bring back Schwarber, which I got to believe that they will, I think that there's a right-handed bat or two out there to help support and also to protect Bryce Harper in the lineup, maybe a little bit more significantly, or give Rob Thompson, the manager, a little bit more flexibility in his lineup. I do think that it's a good team. I do think you're going to see some young players get opportunities. I think Crawford and Painter are going to get opportunities to be in the big leagues. You may see Aiden Miller later on if there's a breakdown and he continues to develop, and they have to probably get a little bit younger in their core players. So I would not be surprised if those guys make some impact. But I think right-handed bat is an important one for them, and someone who can make consistent contact, drive in runs, get base hits, extend innings. And then from the right side also, I think in the bullpen, they probably need a setup guy that they can take the ball to Duran. Even though Strom and Alvarado have had success, I'd like to get a guy that maybe is a little bit more locked down.
Ohtani, is he the most amazing thing you've ever seen come through baseball?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of joke that he's sort of AI, right? I mean, you don't really, he's almost like a robot. Interestingly, when the Phillies play them, they actually handle him really, really well. He's not had a ton of success against them, but to watch him do what he can do, not just on the mound, not just at the plate, but on the mound as well, it's just extraordinary. I had an opportunity to see him before he came over to the States and Japan, and he was, a marvelous talent. But to watch what he has done, it's hard to imagine that there is a better or has been a better all-around player in the history of the game. I just can't imagine that's possible. And I remember saying to myself, I just put this guy, I don't even have to get him on the mound. I'll put this guy in right field and just let him play every single day out there. And he'll be worth the $700 million because he can do so many things offensively for your team. Not that anybody's necessarily worth $700 million, but so far it's worked for them. They've got a couple of World Series to walk away from.
How about the way that the game has handled him? I thought it was fascinating in the World Series where, he's getting more time to warm up and Schneider's at the top of the dugout like, hey, what the hell's going on? I mean, he really is like, and you could tell like these umpires who are so well educated and have such great experience, they don't know what to do. I mean, it's when you saw that happening, the delay with him because he's just come off third base. So he starts his warm-ups 3 minutes after they come back from commercial. What do you make of that? And like going forward, how does that get handled?
Yeah, I think he's sort of getting the Michael Jordan treatment, right? He's he's the guy that a little bit of the face of baseball, and so he's being treated a little differently. I sort of have differing opinions about that. I don't think it's fair to the other clubs that he gets that treatment. And at the same time, I mean, for the good of the game, I guess, overall, maybe you give him a little bit more leeway. I don't mind the umpires having a little bit more common sense, but the reality of it is I don't, if I'm playing against him and I'm playing in the World Series and this guy's getting, a different level of treatment, I'm not going to be very happy as a GM or a manager.
Oh, that's great from you. All right, last one, because we're in Texas and I don't get to talk to a GM every day. When you are getting ready for spring training last February and you see the alert on your phone or you wake up to it because it was so late at night that the Mavs trade Luka Doncic, right? Like, and then and as a GM, when you see that move being made, and of course you're thoughtful, so you're like, there must be way more to that than I know. But at the same time, how much does that shock you to see a general manager trade away a generational talent like that? And is that something that is almost like a hard no in whatever case?
I mean, I really have a tough time moving those guys. When we were finally getting to the point where we were in a total rebuild, to have to move, and I've been through it, to have to move guys like Chase Utley and Jimmy Rollins. I think that they were sort of towards the end of their careers as far as their overall talent and production. But when you move a guy like Luka, I mean, when you move a guy like this, I don't get it. I don't understand it. I know that the Boston Red Sox moved Mookie Betts. That was a shocker to me. I know Mookie extremely well. He's a generational talent and person. I don't know, the personalities that were involved there, but my goodness gracious, it puts your franchise and puts you, I mean, the bullseye gets on you fast. And obviously there's a reason why he's no longer part of that organization, but that's a really, really difficult decision to do. And I don't envy him. I would try not to do that and do what I could to try to work around it, especially in basketball where I think one player has so much more effect on a team in a game like basketball. They're basically 1/5 of your starting core, right? And they have so much of an impact on the daily compared to football or baseball or other sports that really need the support system with other players. Basketball is one of those suckers that, man, oh man, when you have a generational talent like that, you never want to let him go.
How do you set that up with Chase Utley? Like a guy, like, I mean, that he is Philly, but you got to move him, late stages of the career. Do you bring him in and say, hey, here's what because he's not just a regular guy. This is more than a business move, right?
It was heart-wrenching for me, gut-wrenching. He's one of my favorite all-time Phillies. He and Roy Halladay and some others, but really, really gut-wrenching for me because I know what he means and what he meant and who he is and what he is. And for me to have those discussions with him, I was honest with him. I told him, listen, we're not going to be very good. And we're going to be in a position where you're going to be surrounded by some highly less talented players than you have been around for the last 6 or 7 years. And frankly, I wanted to give him an opportunity to go play in a place, one, that he felt comfortable, and two, in a place where he still had a chance to win somewhere. And I was,
Yeah, you didn't send him to Pittsburgh. You sent him to LA. Yeah.
And he had a no trade, so he had
Yeah.
a lot of thunder on that decision. But you and I always felt like this. I always try to respect the players that respected the game. And I love to give those guys opportunity. I think John McDonald was with us one year, and he was only with us for like half a year. But I sent him to Boston because, and we weren't contending, that was home for him, and I thought he could help them, maybe contend or what have you, be a good piece for him. I know it's important and incumbent on me to do what's best for the organization, but as a player and as a person, you have, some level of compassion about what happens. I've been fired. I've been let go. I had been traded and really never had any say, never got to the point where I was able to do that. And so I understand what it means to be leaving an organization that really meant that much to Chase.
Ruben Amaro Jr., we've kept you way too long. Thanks so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. A lot of gratitude, man.
Hey, no problem. I'm glad to join you. And hey, Dallas is all right. That's a nice city.
Oh, it's great. I love it. I love it.
I love it there. I hope you're enjoying yourself there.
I'm doing good, man. Thanks a lot, Ruben.
Take care.
Take care, bud. There he goes, Ruben Amaro Jr. Yeah, that's a guy I've been wanting to talk to for such a long time. And this opportunity comes up, and Chris Visser's like, hey, how about it? I'm like, please. That's a dude I've always looked up to. And again, I remember that. He came out of the gates white hot, and they literally made a song about him. And you just don't forget that when you're like a 8, 9-year-old kid. So that dude's been part of the fabric of my baseball life for a long time. All right, let's step aside. We'll come back. Much props to Ruben for taking the time. We're presented by Slovacek's. A couple more items to hit quickly, and then we'll get out of here. So the Pete Souza Show. Check us out on the other side of the break.